ma'am, and good morning. Mr. Fleming.
Good morning.
Here.
Mr. Gill.
Here.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Here.
Mr. McKinnon.
Here.
Ms. O'Connell.
Here.
Dr. Pritchard.
Here.
Mr. Thomas. He was here, but we'll get him when he gets back. Mr. Tolles.
Here.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Here.
Madam Chair.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Everyone should already have a copy of today's agenda for this September 10th, 2020 telephonic meeting. Anyone who wished to be a speaker on today's agenda has already filled out the attendance speaker's card, and it is in the hands of Mr. Whitehead or his staff. When it is time for you to speak, he or his staff will call your name. We'll unmute you at the appropriate time for you to speak. Please wait about 10 seconds before speaking so you can be properly unmuted and so that we can hear all of your remarks. At this point, I would like to read our conflict of interest statement. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The members shall in this teleconference let us know verbally they are recusing themselves during deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for a refusal for the purpose of maintaining a quorum. I would now like to get the approval of the minutes of our August the 13th Land Use Control Board meeting. May I please have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move the approval of the August meeting minutes of the Land Use Control Board. This is Pritchard.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Do I have a second?
Second, Wilbanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. We have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none, I assume that you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Whitehead, may I please get a secretary's report for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Yes, ma'am. And while I have the floor, has Mr. Thomas joined us? Not yet. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Under the category of Secretary's Report, I did want to take this opportunity to update the board on some of the more recent cases that this body has heard, but since the last time it met, a legislative body vote has occurred, and in both of these instances, that legislative body is the City Council. The first of those was the conversion of Graves Elementary at the corner of Winchester and Graves, the proposal to convert it to light manufacturing. That was, I believe, unanimously rejected by the City Council a couple weeks ago. On the other hand, the Lamar rezoning, the ordinance that converted a lot of the high-intensity commercial zoning along Lamar, which we call CMU 3, was which downzoned those properties to CMU 1, our lower intensity commercial zoning district. That was approved, again, unanimously by the council. With that, Madam Chair, the following procedures will be employed for this meeting. At the beginning of today's meeting, we will establish a consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or on the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we will move on to the regular agenda. For each case on the regular agenda, DPD staff will give a staff presentation. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation and any testimony from others who would like to support the application. Following that, we will hear from the opposition. Each side, the applicant plus supporters, and opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes. Following those two 10-minute periods, we will go back to the applicant for a 3-minute rebuttal. Following all the presentations and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask if the board members have any additional questions from anyone who spoke. Then the chair will close the public hearing portion of the case, entertain a motion on the matter, discuss, and then vote on the application. As sometimes happens, if an applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing portion of the case, or more often, if a board member wishes to hear additional testimony, that will require a 2/3 affirmative vote by the board to reopen the public hearing, at which point the chair shall provide both sides an equal amount of additional testimony. We have, as Madam Chair, as you mentioned, we do have a list of speakers in attendance for each of these cases, and I believe Ms. Wilbanks has her list of consent items, but I will go ahead and rattle them off as well, because I wanted to cover a brief explanation of agenda item number 1. Agenda item number 1 deals with the continued, at least for the following 2 months, use of a telephonic forum to conduct these meetings. Under the latest executive order by the governor, he requires that if we are going to continue telephonic meetings in September and October, we, the body, make an affirmative finding that it is necessary for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County. Madam Chair, I know you agree with me, and I believe a quorum, perhaps, of the board also agrees, but I am confident in saying that once we have the city council chambers retrofitted for habitation, if you recall, the council chambers for decades had a drainage issue where stormwater had to be collected in buckets. That project should be completed soon, and I would like to return to the council chambers once that project is complete. And I predict the council chambers will be retrofitted just as this room, the committee chambers, and the county commission chambers across the street have been retrofitted with plexiglass to guarantee that the people on the dais who sit in close proximity are protected from one another. But of course, the auditorium in the council chambers is the only auditorium I'm familiar with that has the size that will enable social distancing among all other members of that meeting. And of course, mask wearing would be required as well. So just a little add-on on agenda item number 1. I do hope in the next few months we can return to public hearing, and that is of course assuming that our positivity rates continue to slide downwards. With that, I think just to quickly summarize what Ms. Wilbanks is about to summarize is our consent agenda. Agenda item number 2 is a consent as approval with the striking of condition 4 that dealt with ground floor retail, since that is no longer a part of that building. Agenda item number 3 is consent as a 1-month hold, so the the applicant can hold a neighborhood meeting. Number 4 would be consent as approval. Number 5 would be consent as approval. Number 6, consent as approval. Number 7, consent as approval. Number 8, the applicant has requested, due to our recommendation of rejection, a 1-month hold. So if that is on consent, item number 8 would be consent as a hold. Number 9, we will hear. Number 10, we have several callers on the line, so I want to give the body the pros and cons of this case, the pros and cons of the request for a hold. Once our staff report went out with the recommendation of rejection, that put the applicant on notice, obviously, that we were recommending rejection. And yesterday afternoon, the representative made a request to us to hold the case for 1 month. I want to share this with the board. We have several callers on the phone right now, and also this is a repeat of a strikingly similar request made 2 years ago. so I wanted to give the board all the information, but typically when we have a request for hold, we place it on consent as a 1-month hold. And just to clarify, what does the word consent mean? That means a 100% consent. So if any member of the body would like to go ahead and pull one of these cases, including number 10, off consent, then we would have a public hearing. Number 11 would be consent as approval. Number 12, hear it. Number 13 will hear it, and number 14 will hear it. And Madam Chair, I think I can relinquish the floor now.
Okay, thank you. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support or in opposition to a case, he or she should have already filled out a speaker's card and provided it to Mr. Whitehead or his staff. Again, thank you, Mr. Whitehead, for your announcements. The Land Use Control Board is a supporter of community involvement, and we welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off of work, adjusted your work schedules, or adjusted your schedules, even if you're still at home, to be heard today via telephone. But we ask that your comments be made within the time frame allowed, the 10 minutes /10 minutes for the opposition and the supporters. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive with your side's limited time. Lastly, I'd like to ask all of you to silence your cell phones as to not interrupt or disturb anyone during today's proceeding, as these can still be heard if you are unmuted via this teleconference. Now we're going to move to the consent agenda. With our procedures now explained, I would like to introduce to you Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read those items which will be on the consent agenda. Those items where requests have been made for a public hearing will not be placed on the consent except for those that will be held in abeyance until a future meeting. Ms. Wilbanks, would you proceed and read the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1, resolution of the Land Use Control Board that continuation of meeting telephonically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Memphis and Shelby County in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, pursuant to Section B of Governor Lee's Executive Order number 60. Item number 2, case Z-1546 in the University District. The request is a modification to the site plan approved with the Luther Towers apartment shop plan at the southeast corner of Highland and Cowden to allow additional parking. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. However, we are striking condition number 4. Item number 3, case S-20-18 in Fisherville. The request is a 4-lot major subdivision at the north end of Monterey Mills Cove. Staff recommendation is a hold for 1 month. Item number 4, case S-20-19 in Berkley. The request is an 8-lot major subdivision on the south side of Tutwiler Avenue at Eastern Drive. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 5, case S-20-20 in South Memphis. The request is a 2-lot major re-subdivision at the northwest corner of Brooks Road and Interstate Highway 55. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 6, case SAC 20-17 in South Memphis. The request is the closure of the alley on the west side of Pond Street between McLemore and Regent Avenues. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 7, case PD 05-333 on Leno. Request is a major modification to allow a time extension for the Grays Creek planned development on the northeast and southeast side of Houston Levee Road and future Dexter Road. Staff recommendation is approval. Item number 8, case PD 06-348 on Leno. Request is a major modification to allow a convenience store with gasoline sales in Area A of the Thomas Country planned development at the southwest corner of Houston Levee and Pisgah Roads. Staff recommendation is a hold for 1 month. Item number 10, case PD 20-08 in South Memphis. The request is a convenience store with gas sales at the southeast corner of Norris and Hernando Roads. Staff recommendation is a hold for 1 month. And item number 11, case PD 20-10 at Windike. The request is a senior living facility at Windike Country Club. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. That is the end of the consent agenda.
Thank you. The items on the consent agenda will now be voted on with 1 vote subject to the recommendation of the OPD. If those that she read are voted upon, then we will only be hearing 9, 12, 13, and 14. Can I get a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda
Yes,
If you would read.
move to approve item number 1, item number 2, case Z 15-46, item number 3, case S 20-18, item number 4, case S 20-19, item number 5, case S 20-20, item number 6, case SAC 20-17, item number 7, case PD 05-333, item number 8, case PD 06-348, item number 10, case PD 20-08, item number 11, case PD 20-10, and I want to clarify, item number 2, it's approval with conditions, but striking number 4. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, is that Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second from Dr. Pritchard. Is there any discussion? Again, is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote, and this will be an individual vote. Mr. Whitehead.
Yes, and I would like to announce that Mr. Thomas has joined us. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mr. Gill,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace,
Yes.
and Mr. McKinnon, I believe you have stipulated that you will be recusing from 10, but with that condition, I'm calling on you now.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. O'Connell,
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Tolles,
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks,
Yes.
Chair Sharp.
Yes.
We have 10 ayes, and Madam Chair, I did want to stipulate to the audience that items 3, 8, and item 10 is the gas station at Norris and Hernando Roads, are not being approved on consent. They are being held over for 1 month and will be on the October agenda. Those 3 items will be heard in 1 month. With that, Madam Chair, 10 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we're going for the regular agenda. Dr. Pritchard, would you call out the regular agenda, please?
Yes, agenda item number 9, PD 09-310, Berkley, modification to McDonald Plan Development at 4112 Summer Avenue to reflect the current site improvements, and staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you. We have some opposition on this case, so we are ready to hear this case. Please, I believe that's Mr. Thomas. Is the applicant present first?
Yes, ma'am. Cindy Reeves, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite 200.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're ready to hear the case. Mr. Thomas? Hello?
Mr. Thomas?
Hello, members of the board. Sorry about that. I was on mute. So the case before us here is a PD 09310. It's a correspondence case, major modification to a previously approved PD located at 4112 Summer Avenue. The owner applicant is Brown's Automotive Group, LLC. The representative is Cindy Reeves. And the request is revision of the site plan conditions to allow for automotive sales. Next slide, please. So the site is located on the north side of Summer Avenue and has been operating as automotive sales for quite some time now. The proposal is consistent with the Memphis 3.0 plan, and the staff is recommending approval with changes to the outline plan conditions. Next slide, please. So vehicle sales as a principal use is permitted by right within the outline plan conditions. They're proposing addition for landscape buffers that will create a more desirable and aesthetically pleasing site along Summer Avenue. We believe that the proposed development will not unduly injure or damage the use and value enjoyment of the surrounding properties or hinder or prevent development in accordance with the plans for City Council. Next slide, please. So we're recommending approval with conditions to the outline plan. And then next slide, please. Here are just some of the outline plan additions. A wrought iron fence and landscaping will be installed along the Summer Avenue frontage. The existing house will be demolished and replaced with a more suitable building. We're doing an outdoor lighting plan to make sure that the light isn't reflecting on some of the neighboring properties. We're establishing that the proposed gate on the curb cut must have a queued-up space of 40 feet as subject to city engineering requirements. And we are requesting that no banners, flags, streamers, balloons, or similar advertising devices will be permitted on that lot. Although I believe the applicant and representative are requesting some revisions to some of the outline plan additions before you. So we'll wait to hear what they have to say. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Thomas right now? Okay, hearing none, I assume the applicant is ready to make your presentation. You have 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chairman. A little bit of background about this plan development. It was originally approved in 2001, and it was the first car dealer on Summer Avenue approved. And that's the reason that it was as a plan development, or one of the reasons that it was done as a plan development. So it was done in 1997, 2001 they made an amendment, and then in 2009 they made another amendment. That was the previous property owners. They have since sold the property to Derek Brown, my client, who wants to make a total change of that site to make it more in conformance with the other dealerships in Memphis, basically. And if you see the pictures, he's getting rid of the rail fence, adding wrought iron. He wants to tear down the existing house, which is not habitable. He will operate until he can build his new building out of the other house. There were two houses there that they operated the previous car dealership out of. The previous owner only recorded one plan development or final plan, and that was the one I think in 97. And so he failed to follow his obligations. We've also talked with the Summer Avenue Merchants Association. They expressed support. They were excited that a new owner was coming in and were making improvements to the site. And they were just excited to finally get something really good for this site. We want to save a lot of our time for rebuttal to talk about some of the conditions and hear what the opposition has to say, and just let you know that Mr. Brown is going to be a very, very good neighbor for this, and will make some major improvements that will make the site look so much better than it does today.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions of Ms. Reeves right now? Hearing none, I'm ready for the opposition. Mr. Rushing. If you would state your name and address, please.
Mr. Rushing, yes, thank you.
Yeah, my name is Justin Rushing. I live on 616 Vaughn. I am within visual distance of this property. There's a lot about this that I'm just not sure about. I mean, I understand that the property there is not in very good condition. It doesn't seem like it has been for a very long time. That being said, there's a lot about this that it doesn't seem like says the proposed development will not unduly injure or damage the use value and enjoyment of the surrounding property. I mean, obviously, this is going to entail a lot of construction, and I'm not entirely sure how putting a car lot, I understand it's already a car lot, but I don't see how that's not harming our property values. So that seems like a fairly unchallenged assumption to me, as a neighbor, as someone that lives here. I mean, I don't understand, how anyone wouldn't see a car lot that is like most of the car lots that are on Summer Avenue that are in the vicinity that we live in as an eyesore. I understand that this plan seems to try to make some concessions, some improvements to the area. But that being said, the main issue that I take issue with is just the car sales itself. I mean, I think that on Summer Avenue, we have a lot of other car lots, and there are other, businesses like that don't really seem to provide any real value to the neighborhood other than to make it look like a giant parking lot. So, it's in my opinion that it's not in the interests of the neighborhood to have it there. It hasn't been really being used as a car lot for seems like a little while now. It's just kind of been abandoned. And surely, it would be great for it to be used for something. But it seems like maybe the owners or whoever is involved with it really haven't spent any time trying to get that shopped out to some other, retail business or some other commercial business that would provide a little bit more value, a little bit more beauty to the neighborhood than a car lot. I understand that business is business, and all that, but with all due respect, the rest of us have to live in this neighborhood. And I've been here for over 5 years myself. So it's a matter of seeing improvements in the neighborhood, and I'm of the opinion that a car lot is not going to improve the neighborhood no matter how beautified it is. That being said, there's also issues of increased noise pollution from construction and from any possible, car repairs or things that go on there. There's also going to be light pollution from it. There's going to be enormous lights. I've got a car lot here, this other car lot that is directly across the street from the one that is being proposed to be built. So, now you've got two car lots directly across from each other. So that doesn't look good. But of course, what is the business sustainability of a car lot, being built upon and is trying to open in the middle of the pandemic. The car lot that's on the opposite side of the street has no cars in its lot, and so I don't know what how long a car lot is going to be able to be in business there, and what happens when it goes out of business. It becomes a vacant lot. So it may be that the business owner is going to transform it into a very nice car lot, and that's fine and well, but what happens in a year, 2 years, 3 years when that business isn't sustainable, goes out of business, and just becomes an empty lot? So that is check. I don't understand how the proposal can say that this wouldn't cause any damage to property values and such. I tried to do as much research as I could regarding commercial development on property values, and I found it very hard to actually find reliable data on how commercial development affects property values. That is hard to find information on that, in my opinion. So I'm not sure how, someone could say that it wouldn't cause damage in property values just from the mere fact of having it there, having the construction that leads up to it, and things like that. The one study that I did found that developments like this do impact property values. They do lower property values, and maybe only in the short term, maybe 2 or 3 years. But what does that do for us in the neighborhood if there's going to be a lot of construction, things like that, things that are going to increase traffic? Traffic on Summer Avenue is already at an all-time high, and so now we're going to have construction equipment and all this other stuff coming down the street, making the traffic even worse. So that's my main issue. It's mainly quality of life. I understand that the board or whatever you guys may see it as, that the property owner has right to do that. That being said, the property owner doesn't live here. The rest of us live here. We are, me and all of these other houses that are on Vaughn, that are, in the adjacent neighborhood to the opposite side. These are the people that are going to have to live around this thing. And, we're the ones who are going to see property value decrease, who are going to see increase of traffic, increase of pollution, increase of noise pollution, light pollution, all of those things that are, not only going to affect our property, but also our quality of life and our enjoyment of our neighborhood, our pride in our neighborhood. And I mean, let's be honest, I don't see how a used car lot is going to increase the, quality and character of our neighborhood. That's just my opinion. So that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rushing. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Rushing? Have any questions for Mr. Rushing? Okay, Ms. Reeves, you have time to rebut Mr. Rushing.
Thank you. Derek Brown actually does live in Memphis. I don't know where he got his information. He has, he lives in Memphis. He also Mississippi. So some of us have 2 residents. The construction will be temporary. The new building will not be immediately constructed. They're going to operate out of the existing building that they're not tearing down. They're going to tear down the one that is inhabitable, and then they'll be able to, they've done renovations to the other building, and that's where they'll operate out of. The property values should go up from what the existing use is. If Mr. Rushing purchased his home with the car lot there, then his property values should go up with the improvements that we're going to be making than going down. There will also be a photometric plan that's required that will give the 0-foot candle. There will be a landscape plan. It's always been a car lot. We're not asking for a use. We're not asking that we change the use to anything else. Inventory for cars right now during the pandemic is extremely low because a lot of people are buying new cars because of the interest rate, and it's all over the country. Inventory is just low. His facility will be very similar to a smaller version of City Auto. He's not opening this and investing in it to go out of business. That's not his plan. Is to 3 years from now he's going to close the doors. He's making a major investment, and this is his life, and he plans to keep the business going, and it will be better than any other lot along Summer Avenue. And so we just feel that it is an improvement from what's there, and it will be a much nicer facility than what is across the street and what is down the street. The property has been neglected. We all agree to that. But Mr. Brown bought the lot in June, He thought that his use was permitted. When he found out it wasn't, he started going through this process, and it's taken us this long to go through the process and get this application before the board in order to have the major modification. We just feel that it is not going to decrease property value. It is going to be a good neighbor. There will be photometrics plans, there'll be landscaping plans, there will be major improvements along Summer Avenue with wrought iron fencing instead of your bar. It's going to be secure, and we just feel that we would appreciate it if the board would approve this application. And I would like to make some modifications to the conditions if the board would like to consider the modifications, if they feel that this site plan is a good site plan, and that this use should remain in this location and be permitted.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Reeves. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Reeves? Any questions?
This is
Ms.
Jennifer
Reeves?
O'Connell. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. O'Connell.
It says the hours of operation are from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Is that correct?
That's not his hours. That was the previous plan development hours, and
Okay.
we did not come up with those hours. We will be glad to change those hours to 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. If that would please the board, we will be glad to make that as an amendment.
I think that might be just more amenable to the neighbors if it was 9 to 6 rather than 6 to 9.
I fully agree with you also. Thank you so much for making that amendment.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions from the board members for Ms. Reeves? Hearing none, then I'm going to close the public portion of our meeting. And upon closing the public portion, Dr. Pritchard?
Yes. Move approval of agenda item number 9, PD 09-310, with the conditions and the added one as to the hours of operation from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Do I hear a second?
Yes, second, Toles.
Okay, we have a second from Mr. Toles. Is there any discussion among our board members? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're all ready to vote, and it will be an individual vote. Mr. Whitehead?
Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Toles?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Chair Sharp?
Yes.
That's 10 ayes.
We have 10 ayes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Dr. Pritchard?
We'll go to agenda item number 12, SUP 20-09, Berkley, gas station at the northeast corner of Summer Avenue and Bartlett Road. Staff recommendation is rejection.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes, ma'am. Tim McCaskill, 7891 Stage Hills Boulevard.
Thank you. Okay, since this was rejected by OPD, we're ready to hear it, Mr. Thomas.
Good morning again, board members. So yeah, this is SUP 2009, located on 5050 Summer Avenue, at the corner of Summer and Barrett Road. You can see the aerial there. It's a sort of triangular lot that is close to a residential neighborhood. Next slide. So the existing zoning is a commercial mixed use 3, and this site in particular has had a special use permit done in 2015 and a BOA that was done actually in 1938. To the north is a primarily single-family neighborhood with a couple of multifamily units in there, and then to the east, south, and west, it's mostly commercial or industrial. As you can see here from the land use map, the residential properties to the northwest and the commercial that surrounds the majority to all other directions. Next slide, please. So here's a view of the subject property from Summer Avenue facing north. As you can see, the United Auto sign there, as this used to be a car lot. Next slide. And here's the view of the property from Bartlett Road facing northeast. Next slide. So one of the reasons for the rejection is the site is 0.2 miles away from the nearest gas station to the east, the Summer and White Station Exxon, and is 1.6 miles away from the gas station to the west, the Kroger Fuel Center. Next slide. Here's the proposed site plan with curb cuts on both Summer and Bartlett. Next slide, please. And so this proposal is not consistent with the Memphis 3.0 plan based on its location to residential properties. As you can see, Acorn Drive, Byron Road, and Briscoe Road. So in conclusion, the applicant is seeking a convenience store with gasoline. With gasoline sales at an intersection that does not comprise of two arterial roads, as Bartlett Road is considered a local residential street. The corner lot resides as an entryway to a residential part of the Berkley neighborhood, and as a result, we believe that this project will have a substantial undue adverse effect upon the adjacent properties, and that the character of the neighborhood, the traffic conditions, could affect the public health, safety, and general welfare of that neighborhood. Next slide, please. So the staff is recommending rejection. However, if approved, the staff recommends the following conditions: a landscape plan for administrative review, additional light fixtures be installed that meet the requirements and standards of the UDC, a trip generation report subject to city engineering requirements, no window signage. All facades of the convenience store with gasoline sales should be of masonry construction. Canvas should be the only permitted awning material, and the front facade of the building shall be at least 50% transparent. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Board members, you have any questions for Mr. Thomas at this time? Okay, hearing none, we're ready for the applicant, Mr. McCaskill.
Thank you. This site has been a used car lot for over 20 years. The last couple of years it's been vacant. There's a pool supply business north of us on Bartlett Road. The staff's recommended rejection because of the close proximity to residential. The fact is, all convenience stores are located near residential. That's who their customers are, all across the city. Summer Avenue from White Station all the way back to East Parkway is 100% commercial. There's every kind of business you can imagine along that stretch. It's probably the most commercialized street in Memphis. In that stretch, there are approximately 20 streets that run north from Summer, and every single one of them runs to residential neighborhoods. That entire stretch has 200 or 300 feet of commercial along Summer with residential north of it. This intersection is no different. It's the same way all along the street. I ask that you consider approval of this application because this would be a good use for that corner. If you do approve it, we have no problem with the conditions recommended by staff. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McCaskill. Board members, do you have any questions of Mr. McCaskill at this time? Okay, I didn't see any opposition. Is there any opposition here for this particular case?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Hearing none, and no questions of anybody, then I assume we're ready to close the public portion of our meeting on this particular agenda item. Dr. Pritchard?
Move approval of agenda item number 12, SUP 20-09.
Second.
Do I have, okay, second, Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. We will take an individual vote. Mr. Whitehead?
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
No.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles-Wallace?
No.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks?
No.
Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
And Chair Sharp?
Yes.
That's 7 ayes, 3 nays.
Motion carries. Or does the motion fail?
No,
Motion
it carries.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Pritchard?
Agenda item number 14, Z 20-09 Parkway Village, the rezoning of 2936 and 2944 South Perkins Road from R6 residential single family to CMU1. Staff recommendation is rejection.
On number 12?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, that was 12 was the one we just voted on.
Correct.
No, we just
We're on
voted
13
yeah, we just
now.
voted on. So we're ready for 13.
Do you want to hear 13?
I
Yes,
want you to
ma'am.
make.
All right. Agenda item number 13, SUP 20-12, previously known as PD 20-09, truck stop and gas sales on the west side of South 3rd Street, approximately 3,300 feet south of Interstate Highway 55. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Okay, we have some opposition on this one, so we will hear it. Is Mr. Davis in to make a
Yes, ma'am.
Present it? Okay, before you present it, is the applicant present?
Yes. Henry Porter, 6055 Promising Parkway.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davis?
All right. Well, good morning, members of the board and public. My name is Brett Davis with the Division of Planning and Development. So this is case SUP 20-12. It's a special use permit application for a truck stop and gas pumps. The location is the west side of South 3rd Street between Peebles and I-55. As Dr. Pritchard said, a little over 3,000 feet south of the interstate, owned by LFM Inc. The applicant is Mr. Abdallah Ayesh. The area of the site is 7 acres and it is zoned employment and heavy industrial, so both of our industrial zoning districts. Next slide, please. Here's the location in South Memphis, just south of the interstate. Next slide, please. An aerial photograph with zoning boundaries. So we see that it is part of a greater 2 parcels at the moment. Those parcels would be reconfigured. It's vacant land. The forested land to the north and west of the site, which is outlined in blue, is a floodplain. It's also covered in a conservation easement and is forested. The site itself is open land, it's sodded. There's a billboard right in the middle along 3rd Street, and It is across the street to the right on this map from auto sales and from more vacant land. You can see that most of the site is heavy industrial and the southeastern portion is light industrial zoning. Next slide, please. Here's the land use map. Again, we see the Nankana running to the northeast of this site. Purple is industrial. The purple at the top of the map is a railroad, which is south of the interstate. Again, commercial across the street and to the south. There's a restaurant to the south, some outdoor supply businesses, residential to the southwest. But it has an open character when you're at the site itself. Next slide, please. Here is a photograph. The site is to the left. We see the forest closer to the railway in the background, as well as the billboard currently on site. Next slide, please. Here's the site plan. So the proposed structure is towards the south in the middle. It has 6 retail bays. One is bigger, and the others are much smaller, a little over 1,000 square feet each. We have gas pumps to the east of that. Those would be for personal vehicles. And then to the west of the building, to its rear, are the diesel pumps for tractor trailer fueling, as well as a scale for tractor trailers. Next slide, please. I will note out on the site plan, the applicant has agreed to remove the existing billboard. In conclusion, the applicant has requested a special use permit for a truck stop and gas pumps. Truck stops and gas pumps are permitted by right in the employment and heavy industrial zoning districts, but only if located at the intersection of 2 major streets, hence the need for a special use permit in this case. Again, the billboard would be removed if this proposal is approved and built, and staff finds that the proposed development would have no deleterious effect on its vicinity and meets the special use permit approval criteria. The next slide, please. That's why we are recommending approval with conditions, requiring the removal of the billboard and masonry construction of the principal structure. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Board members, do we have any questions for Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay, hearing none, we're ready for your presentation.
Gerald Thomas.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, you have a question?
My question, yes, I'm traveling, so I'm not, just a truck stop. Where will the truck be entering and exiting?
If you go to the site plan,
I know the area, but I'm not looking at anything. I'm keeping my eyes on the road right now. So.
Okay. Well, they would be entering from South 3rd Street. As proposed, the site has 3 curb cuts. I'm not sure that the city engineer will actually permit all 3 of those, but they would be entering from one of 2 curb cuts on South 3rd Street.
So there wouldn't be a separate entry and exit for the trucks? That would be some serious congestion if everyone has to use the same entrance and exit.
The way the site plan is configured, there's 1 curb cut that looks specifically for the tractor trailers and 2 that are for personal vehicles. So they would have separate entrances, yes.
And the fueling of the trucks would be, I'm assuming, behind the building structure that they built would be in the back?
Correct. It's a T-shape, so the building runs along South 3rd Street, and then the diesel fueling pumps make up the rest of the T, to the rear of the structure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if there's any signage proposed to restrict a curb cut to tractor trailers, although I'm sure the applicant would probably be amenable to that.
Okay, does that answer your question, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Applicant, are you ready to make your presentation?
Yes, I am. I will address kind of that one question just then about the curb cuts and entrances for the trucks. So the southern entrance is solely for trucks. It's a little bit wider. We've actually reached out to Ken Johnson with engineering department to see if he had any issues with this project, and ultimately what he's going to allow us to do is put a 48-foot entrance on the south end for the trucks, and then the others are going to be, I think it was 36 feet, the other two, and those are going to be solely for personal vehicles.
Okay, can you give us your name and address first, and then your presentation?
Yeah, my bad. So it's Henry Porter, and it's 6055 Promising Parkway. I'll make this really quick, but basically we're just proposing something that we feel like meets the Memphis 3.0 criteria, that will add jobs to this current zoning that fits with that zoning. It fits in an area that is zoned industrial, that over the years has seen more and more industrial uses coming in. It's a parcel that sits basically directly south of I-55. So even though it's really not on a corner, it's really the first parcel you come to once you pass over the Noncona Bridge and you come to and you go past the railroad tracks. We're willing to listen to any of the objection and reserve more time at that point.
Okay. All right, thank you. We do have, any questions for the applicant at this time?
Yes.
Okay, here's none. Okay.
This is Thomas again.
Okay.
Sir, tell me, Mr. Porter, one thing just came to my mind. So when the trucks exit and they need to go back north, is there a light there? Or they'll have to just cross the street,
There's no light proposed right now. No, sir. Like they would. I think most traffic's probably gonna be coming down from the interstate, would turn in here, and probably fuel up and then continue on south to wherever their desired destination would be. But there is opportunity that the trucks coming north could take a left in and ultimately would have to make that turn and movement back north going to the interstate.
Yeah, I hope you understand my concern right there. You pulling out of there and you want to go back to 55, you got to cross all that traffic with no light.
Mm-hmm. We do. We see that.
Okay. All right, because that's a big street. And
it is. It's 7 lane.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant right now? Okay, if there are none, we're ready for the opposition. We have Ms. Nelson. Is the opposition present?
Dr. Nelson, are you with us?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to piggyback on what Mr. Thomas was saying. My concern as a resident of this area and a person who regularly travels on Highway 61, that is a heavily traveled thoroughfare. And there is no way that a light should be placed in the middle of that intersection. You've got I-55 traffic merging to exit at that Vicksburg South 3rd Street exit, going south, and then you hit a light, and then you hit another light at Pebbles, and then you hit another light at Brooks, and then you hit a fourth light at Winchester or Mitchell Road. That is not going to be a good location for that type of facility. It is too large for that area. These are my concerns. The trucks traveling in there, the cars traveling in there will be, I saw a car when I first moved here try to go from the third lane to the first lane to head 240 south. That car flipped over in front of me 3 or 4 times. It was wet, and those streets are slick, and you're not looking at this from the aspect of the community that's going to be affected by it. The traffic needs to have this control plan done in advance. It is not the intersection of 2 major streets right there. It should not be with conditions that do not take that into consideration. I have people who have been here much longer than I have who says part of that land was a garbage dump. I tried to send pull-apart there 20 years ago, and they didn't relocate there for some reason. It's something going on with that land, and everybody's covering it up. There should not be address. My name is Yvonne Nelson, Dr. Yvonne Nelson, 3519 McCorkle Road. I do not appreciate people giving their work address on Promising Parkway when this has nothing to do with their work as much as it has to do with where they live. They don't live in this area. I know you're here to represent a company, but just like City Council, why can't you give your physical home location instead of your work address? Yes, it's going to bring jobs to the area, and I'm happy for that, but I don't think that that's going to offset the number of accidents and other issues that it's going to cause. And about the light, there's no light proposed right now, and I don't think a light is the answer. I think finding someplace else to put this is the answer. And being that the southern entrance is for trucks versus personal vehicles is not the answer. The signage is not the answer. You need to address the traffic going north and south on Highway 61 and how they can access that facility without causing a major traffic backup on that road every morning. That's 4 lights in a couple of mile radius. This is not a good place. That place is part of a garbage dump. I understand that the owner is looking to do this, but we are tired of all of these facilities coming to our communities that are not beneficial to the people who live in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Board members, do you have any questions for Dr. Nelson? You have any questions for Dr. Nelson? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Porter, we're ready for your rebuttal.
Regarding the traffic, we will do whatever we can to work with city engineering to resolve this in a manner that they would be, equitable to. It's not our intent to, add any hazardous, situation to the to Highway, 61. It is a busy road, and we do recognize that. This is also an area that's still ripe for additional development to occur. And so, it will ultimately get busier, not necessarily at our fault, but just from the open property out there. But, in the meantime, we'll do whatever we can. We've had some preliminary conversations with Ken Johnson of the Traffic Division, and we'll just continue working with him.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Board members, do we have any questions of the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to close the public portion of our meeting. We're going to close the public portion, okay? Dr. Pritchard, can I get a motion?
Move approval of agenda item number 13, SUP 20-12.
Second, Wilbanks.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded by Ms. Wilbanks. Is there any discussion amongst our board members?
Yeah, this is J.C. McKinnon.
Okay.
Yeah, this is J.C. McKinnon. I just kind of briefly, I wanted to discuss this, state something. I think it's not a bad idea. I think it's just in the wrong place. is if you come up to Love's, I think they're at what is right before you get to Getwell and American Way, in the American Way, I think that is. And they have a side road, kind of entrance that's dedicated for, two entrances that's, primarily dedicated for trucks. I think something like that would actually make a lot more sense for the project that you guys are doing. And I think it would move the project along a lot faster. Even if you had a light, having a stoplight would actually make it more enticing for my vote on a yes for this particular project. But seeing that there is none, I'm, going to have to say no. It's not, basically on you guys. I don't know how well Memphis drivers, truck drivers, and residential drivers are. I don't believe in it that much. Not to go against your project, but for that reason, though, I am out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chairman. This is Darrell Thomas. Same thing. I would have no issue with this, but I just know what will happen there with those trucks that are trying to go back to 55 for everyone involved. So I cannot support it for that reason.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead for our individual voting.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Mr. Fleming?
No.
Dr. Pritchard?
No.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles-Wallace?
No.
Mr. McKinnon?
No.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
No.
Ms. Wilbanks?
No.
Madam Chair?
No.
That's 2 ayes, 8 nays.
Okay, motion fails. Thank you.
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
One last case, agenda item number 14, Z20-09, Parkway Village, the rezoning of 2936 and 2944 South Perkins Road from R6 residential single family to CMU1. And staff recommendation is rejection.
Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. Okay, since it's a rejection, we will hear the case. We'll hear the case, Lucas Skinner.
Yes, good morning, Chairwoman and members of the board. I hope everyone is doing well. So this is case D20-09. Again, this is a rezoning from residential R6 to commercial mixed-use 1, CMU1, located at 2936 and 2944 South Perkins Road. The owner applicant is Rafat Moose. I probably just butchered that. I'm so sorry. And represented by Tim McCaskill. The area here, it's about a half an acre divided into 2 parcels. And again, the request is to go to a light commercial zone. The purpose of the request is to expand to the south the commercial zoning that's at the corner of South Perkins and Cottonwood Road, to give enough space to improve the site for more commercial use. There have been some previously approved cases, most notably a PD that was approved in 2012 for a similar request. However, it did expire and was never actualized. The Office of Comprehensive Planning found this to be inconsistent with Memphis 3.0. Staff does agree with those findings, as well as to be incompatible with the surrounding land uses. Therefore, staff is recommending rejection on this case. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Skinner. Do we have any questions for Mr. Skinner at this time? Hearing none, is the applicant present? If you would present yourself with your name and address, please, in your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's Tim McCaskill, 7891 Stage Hills Boulevard.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is at Cottonwood and Perkins. Currently, 3 of the 4 corners of this intersection are commercial uses. Our corner, which is the southeast, currently has a dental office on it. The applicant would like to expand the commercial zoning on this corner to make a significant improvement to the property. Adding these 2 lots to the existing corner commercial lot would allow a 12,000-foot retail building on this corner. Across Perkins on the southwest corner, there are 2 lots on that corner zoned commercial. We had a Zoom meeting and no one attended, neighborhood meeting, I'm sorry, and no one attended. As mentioned in the staff report, this property has previously been approved for a planned development and also for a use variance. That indicates to me that prior boards recognize the need to improve this corner, and we hope you'll consider that and approve this application. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. McCaskill. Do you have any questions of Mr. McCaskill, board members? Any questions? Okay, according to our sheet, there is no opposition. Has any opposition showed up?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Hearing none, then I assume we are ready to close the public portion of our meeting on this particular agenda item. Dr. Pritchard?
Move approval of agenda item number 14, Z20-09, Parkway Village.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and it's been seconded by Ms. Wilbanks. Okay, Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion on this particular agenda item? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead?
Mr. Fleming?
No.
Vice Chair Laws Wallace?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Wilbanks?
No.
Mr. Tolles?
No.
Ms. O'Connell?
No.
Dr. Pritchard?
No.
Mr. Gill?
No.
Mr. McKinnon?
No.
Chair Sharp?
No.
That's 10 nays.
Okay, motion failed.
And that's the end of our agenda, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other announcements?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Hearing none, then we will adjourn our meeting today at 10:43 a.m. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Don't forget, tomorrow is 911.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good day.
you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks,
Thank
Mary.
you.
Y'all have a good one.
Thank you. You too.